at our webinar today focusing on work-based learning programs. We're learning grant programs, sorry. We're so excited to have Robert here presenting with us today. Just a couple of reminders that we will be recording and sending out a post-event email. So if you miss anything or just would like to connect with Robert after this webinar, you will find all that information on our post-event email. So be on the lookout for that. And feel free to use the chat as we move throughout the presentation, whether it's for questions or whether it's for any comments. We'll go ahead and keep up with that and then have some time, about 5 to 10 minutes after the presentation for Q&A. So make sure to have those questions ready. And yeah, we'll be recording and sending out that post-event email. So we hope you guys enjoy this webinar on work-based learning grant programs. So go ahead and take it away, Robert.
Good morning. Thank you all. I appreciate the opportunity. Thank you to the Chamber for setting this up. We look forward to the conversation. Definitely, as there's questions, I'll try and watch the chat, or if the facilitators at any time, this is pretty, for me, this is informal. I'd rather make sure that all of the participants get the information necessary to make decisions on how to move forward or how to work with any of these programs. So feel free to interject at any time during the discussion. So basically, my name is Rob Stenson. My name's Rob Stenson. I am with the City of Phoenix. I'm actually Arizona at Work, City of Phoenix. And the reason why the Arizona at Work name is I actually operate a federally funded Department of Labor grant program called Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA. No reason to memorize that, no reason to get the tattoo for that. This is just kind of where the federal, where I'm funded through. It's federal dollars that come from the United States government down into a local area, specifically to the state and to the City of Phoenix. And so the program really is a workforce development program that involves the Department of Economic Security program from the Office of Economic Opportunity, which is the governor's economic initiative. They're kind of provide oversight, and Department of Economic Security kind of helps set some of the policies for different local areas. You will find, no matter where you are, even if you're not in the City of Phoenix, you will find an Arizona at Work location anywhere throughout the state and every county. So basically, the hierarchy of the program is that the grant says there has to be a local area board for each local area that's set up. The City of Phoenix is one. Maricopa County has another local area. Then Yuma, Pinal, Pima, etc. all have local areas that create these programs. Now, 99% of what you will find is we have buildings that are out there where job seekers go, and let's say you're in that flux state, or you were RIFed, you were laid off during the COVID timeline or something along that line, or maybe you're transitioning and looking for that next job opportunity, and you don't know, we don't interview for jobs all the time. It's a stressful process. It's like dating. Nobody really wants to do it, but you've got to get yourself out there and be prepared for rejection. And I think that's the biggest fear factor for most individuals. Is my resume good? Am I going to get a phone call back? It's a lot of anxiety for individuals. And so our team in the job centers help job seekers with developing their resume, developing their interview techniques, helping with the job search. But a lot of the monies also go to pre-vocational training. So we'll talk about that in a minute today. And then my programs that we're going to discuss today are all employer centric. So I provide grants and services to you, the employers, whether it's my group, if you're within the City of Phoenix, or whether you're in another local area. A lot of these programs are constant throughout the state. See if I can get my slide to advance here. Woo, got crazy there. So why we're here, basically we had indicated I'm about helping local businesses. We have a very, very strong focus on small business initiatives and trying to understand the needs of small business. The programs that I'm going to describe don't really have a size limitation to them. Sole proprietors, we do have some issues with because of the way the grant formatting it works. But organizations with anywhere from 2 to hundreds, thousands of employees are who we work with. Our bread and butter area is actually organizations with less than 250 employees. That just happens to be who we work with the most, but that's not an intention. That's not our focus. We will help anybody that needs help with workforce. And so we have a three-pronged, oops, I made a mistake. This is Rob not being able to do math. That is the four-pronged approach. This must have been the weekend holiday typo error. We have 4 prongs, not 3-pronged approach. So the talent acquisition, I'm going to talk about that a little bit. Pre-vocational training programs, which I've alluded to already, work-based learning programs, and then labor market information is another category that we'll discuss today. So with regard to talent acquisition, all of you probably, if you're in the hiring process, you're probably feeling a little stressed, and you're sending out job postings. You're trying to attract individuals. You're hearing, large unemployment rates, but yet what we're hearing from employers on a regular basis, not only here in Arizona but across the country, is that the job seekers just aren't flocking out and searching. There are a couple of things that are going to change that. The governor's initiative recently to adjust the unemployment process. Now they reinstated, you must be searching for work. So that took place about 2 weeks ago. We have seen an uptick of individuals coming into our offices for assistance with their resume and job search activities. The other component is there's a weaning off of the COVID subsidy. So you could probably make about $20 an hour or so during the COVID timeframe on some of the subsidies that were out, and now those are beginning to reduce. And so, let's just face it, over time, job seekers have become much like us as businesses. They make business decisions. They look at the return on investment and they make a business revenue decision. And that's really what's occurred during this COVID timeframe. You've got childcare issues. You've got all of these different components, plus the need to earn wages. And so people make a very educated decision on how to proceed. And now it's becoming more and more lucrative to jump back into the workplace. The governor has also set in a $2,000 grant opportunity for job seekers that they can receive $2,000 if they were unemployed, gain employment, and maintain employment. And that's a critical component, that they maintain that employment with an organization. And if they do so, we'll cut them a check. The state will cut them a check for $2,000 if they're full-time, $1,000 if they're part-time. So there are additional programs for workforce development that are less known right now by the governor that just came out, and that I don't have a slide for it because it's fairly fresh. And that's if you're unemployed, you can go get training through a community college, and you may have that program paid for. Those details haven't been posted to the state site, so we don't know a lot about that. But those may be opportunities that once we get a few more details of how do we take individuals who have gotten training through the community college and attach them to you as employers to fulfill your needs. So that may be a talent funnel or an inventory of individuals, if you excuse the supply-demand discussion of the process. So what our team does is, because we're federally funded, all of these items that are up on your screen today are free. They came out of your federal taxes. We're just trying to get you some of those tax monies back. My team will help you with job postings, help you with outreach. That could be as simple as you've got a very well-defined job description and you just need to get it out into the ethos in a more dramatic way or a broader way. You might be using Indeed or Craigslist or one of those other venues. We have Arizona Job Connection, which is our state site. It connects you to all of the individuals who are either currently underemployed or were currently released through layoff type programs that occurred, or are looking to upskill. They can search much like in an Indeed program. Arizona Job Connections does that as well. You can send us the job posting, and our team will create an account for you and load that job posting and job description into our system, or you can just go to Arizona Job Connection and create your own account and upload your own postings. You can search resumes and things like that in our system. However, when our team gets engaged, the other component is we can help you with the job search and screening. So much like if you use a third-party recruiter, our team will go in for very specialized type recruiting needs and state, hey, listen, I need a manufacturing technician type role or a maintenance tech. We'll go through, take your job description. We'll do the search within Arizona Job Connection for you. We'll contact potential candidates, screen them, and send you over candidates that meet your expectations. We'll also help you with recruiting events. Right now, all of the recruiting events that we do are virtual. We set up the platform, we do the outreach. That's all you have to do is basically show up on the event day, talk to the job seekers that come to the event and give them a next set of action steps to apply for your positions. I mentioned earlier about the job description. You may have a great job description. We do also offer job feedback. And I'll give you an example. We were working with an organization, great organization, had a tremendous amount of jobs, a very competitive wage, but they were posting for a warehouse clerk. And we couldn't figure out, why they couldn't figure out why they were not getting the responses. Folks weren't coming to events. Folks weren't applying. And so we reviewed the job description and suggested, you know what, people don't understand, although warehouse clerk is the official federally recognized job description for these individuals. The general public doesn't know what a clerk is anymore. It kind of is kind of an 1800s kind of feel to it. If you were watching an old Western, maybe you'd go see the clerk. And so we just asked, hey, maybe if we change this and some verbiage within the description, folks will understand what the position is a little bit more. After we did that, we saw immediate uptick in responses to the job description. Sometimes it's as easy as that. We just have a misalignment of what people, they just don't understand what the job is or what the role is, and therefore they don't apply. So talent acquisition is one area that we work on. The other is a lot of the pre-vocational style training. I mentioned individuals can go into our offices throughout the state, and they can get career counseling. That's really getting the advice of an assistance of getting their search plan together. We also offer talent development. One of the things that we hear from employers on a regular basis is those soft skills are severely lacking. And how do we increase soft skills, communication, professionalism, showing up on time? Almost all of our candidates that receive grant funds directly from us as job seekers must go through a 5-day training program. In that program is the discussion of professionalism. If you're not going to show up for work today, how do you manage that? How do you communicate that? If you're having transportation issues, what does it mean in an adult process to go through and manage your needs to show up to work and solve those issues. And so we'll help talk those individuals through those programs. I also mentioned we have a series of funded training, pre-hire training. And so there's what's called an eligible training provider list. There's hundreds of programs, certification programs that are on that list. Once individuals complete those programs, then we try and connect them with employers who are hiring. So once we take your job description, put it in Arizona Job Connection, that helps us visualize and see who's hiring for those types of positions, and then we try and make that connection there. I'm getting crazy with the mouse today. I apologize for making everybody sick here. The third phase is work-based learning, which is really the heart of the discussion. And so in the work-based learning is comprised of 4 different programs available to employers: an incumbent worker training program, on-the-job training, a customized training, and an apprenticeship program. And so I'm going to start actually in a different order. So a customized training really is focused on individuals who are not with your organization today. It's a pre-vocational or pre-hire training grant program to employers. What this program does is if you have a high level need, or if your industry has a high level need for a specific certification, we can enter into a grant program that says, I want to train for medical assistants or a welder or whatever the program is, and I need them to have these series of skills. There's a out of the box type thinking, or there's a traditional curriculum, but we want to customize it, and we also need them to have X, Y, and Z skills. And if they have those skills, our organization would like to interview the successful completers and perhaps hire those successful completers. This program reimburses the organization, the hiring company, up to 50% of the training costs. Now, this has been typically the organizations that are interested in this program are a little bit larger, have higher, mostly because they have higher demand, hiring needs. To create customized curriculum through a third party takes a little bit of time. So most of the organizations are hiring, well over 50 type individuals in order to make this cost effective. And it is also a conversation that has to be handled internally with your organization of, wait a minute, I'm paying 50% of training costs for employees that aren't employees of mine. Why would I do that? Well, the cost savings really is in the cost of recruiting, and that's where larger organizations are able to quantify, hey, it costs me $5,000 to $10,000 to hire one person. Just going through the process in this training program of a vetted process is only going to cost me maybe $1,000 or $2,000, and I have a group of predefined individuals. So the cost savings is there in that particular program. Next, we have an on-the-job training grant, and so that would be, listen, you've interviewed me. I'm a great fit culturally. I'm a great guy, but I lack the necessary skills to be successful within your organization. And so that actually becomes more of an issue, and that's what we're seeing with most organizations. So most organizations will post for an entry-level position and then state with 2 or 3 years of experience. The average right now for an entry-level position request from employers is 3 years of experience. Well, that's hard. You're looking for entry-level position, but you're actually asking for something with a little bit more experience. So how do we get individuals experience? What you don't want to do is take a risk. It's very costly to bring on an individual, and what's the cost of making that mistake? Listen, I'm from the private sector. I spent my entire life in a family-owned business. I realize this era. I have made horrible hiring decisions at times in my life as a leader of an organization, and then those are painful, and then they have a ripple effect. They impact the other employees within your organization. So you want to make sure that you're making the right choice as much as possible. And so an on-the-job training grant basically says, listen, it's expensive to bring in these individuals because now you have to handhold them. You have to show them how to do the job. That's going to cost your organization time, money. So the Fed basically came in and said, what we can do about that is reimburse you 50% of the hourly the wage for those individuals that you have identified. So I would reimburse your organization 50% of their hourly rate up to $4,000 or up to $50,000 per company per fiscal year. So you can, if you max out the training cost per individual, you can get about 12 and a half people in, and that would 12 and a half people times $4,000 equals $50,000. That's why you have that half a person. That would be $50,000 in a fiscal year. Our fiscal year is July through June. Basically, in the application document, you would just identify what are the positions that you're going to hire for, and then what are the learning objectives that those individuals need to gain. So if it's how to work with your software system, let's say you're working with an SAP system, and that's going to take 80 hours of on-the-job learning time, you just identify that, identify the learning time, and you just keep going through what are all the objectives, you identify those in the document. We just track through a timesheet, what are the objectives, how many hours did the employee spend in each of those categories, and that's how we track the reimbursement component. After the application, I should mention, the on-the-job training and incumbent worker training both require an application to be completed. I've just described what's in the bottom half of the application form. The top half is more about your organization. It's a couple pages about your organization. You won't have to look anything up other than your FEIN number. That'll probably take you the longest on that form to find. The rest of that document could be, on the front side, could be completed in about 5 to 10 minutes. What takes the longest is those learning objectives. If you don't have them defined already, that'll take you a little while to complete. But even if you go through and complete it, as a business leader myself, one of the things that I learned from a lot of organizations that I worked with was oftentimes we forget about the onboarding process and defining what are the steps that we need to take an employee through so they are successful. By writing these steps out, these objectives out, you'll have the unintended benefit of you have that in your records, and you can utilize that for onboarding even outside of the grant program. So let's see. The number that I said was the FEIN number. That'll be what we collect. That's a 9-digit. It's what's specific to your organization. I think there is an ITN number as well, but we don't collect that information. Thank you. The incumbent worker is a little bit different. So the OJT reimburses you for the hourly rate of an individual as a new hire coming in. An incumbent worker is defined by the Department of Labor as an individual who's worked with you full time, 6 months or greater, as a full-time employee. That's the definition of incumbent worker. And it basically says, listen, if I work for you, I may be a great guy, but maybe I lack a specific skill set necessary for me to be competitive or successful within your organization. So let's say I'm working and I'm doing everything okay, but I don't have, let's say, Excel skills, or I don't know how to run pivot tables. And really what you need as an owner, as a leader of the organization, is somebody who can help you digest the data and do data analytics for you so you can make better decisions, or we can identify problems earlier in the process, as an example. Well, this grant would actually pay for me to get training in that specific skill. Or maybe we hear this from folks all the time. We work with employers all the time where I'm a great high potential leader, where I've got the potential to move forward, but I lack the necessary soft skills to be successful. So I'm kind of saying things wrong. My leadership skills are not quite exactly right, and I'm decreasing the motivation of the employees, causing more turnover or something along that line. And you really need that to be improved within your organization. And so this could be used for that. It really is, you identify as the organization, what is the gap in your employees that's a skills gap that needs to be overcome. It could be of a single individual, it could be a group of individuals. This grant basically pays or reimburses you to identify those skills gap and the third-party training provider that's going to teach or overcome those skills gaps. And based off the organization size, we'll reimburse you 50 to 90% of that training cost. But wait, there's more. Little infomercial. So the Fed sat down and said, you know what? Training's really expensive. It's really more. It's very expensive to the organization because you not only have the cost of the training, that's just the small part of it. We've got the hours that are necessary to send those individuals to training. We've got the downtime within the organization where productivity isn't occurring during training hours. And so what can we do? And so the Fed used a couple of words that I love. It says in-kind contribution. In-kind contribution means that when you send Rob to training during normal working hours and you're paying Rob's normal hourly rate, my hourly rate that you're paying me can go towards your contribution. So if training costs $3,000 for me to go get a training program, instead of me reimbursing at a 50 or 90% rate, I would likely pay out the 100% of the training cost. The reason why there's a scale of 50 to 90%, if you're less than 50 employees, it's a 90-10. If you're between 51 and 249 employees, it's a 75-25 split. And if you're over 250 employees, it's a 50-50 split. So that's kind of how those numbers work out. This does have an application process. It is called the Layoff Aversion Program. I don't want you to be nervous about that. We're the government. The Fed doesn't know what else to call it. So if I am working for you and I lack a specific skill, what are you going to do? More than likely, you're going to need to go find somebody with that stated skill, and you're going to have to bring them in if I don't get that skill. And then what good am I within your organization? I become less competitive within your organization. Or even worse, and this happens oftentimes with smaller businesses, is we ignore the problem. We ignore the skills gap, and it has incredible negative context to you as a smaller business, because now you're limping along and you're making do, and therefore you're probably not able to increase and meet your vision and your strategic plans and things like that. And so you've stunted your growth of your organization, or even worse, you're not competitive as an organization, and therefore you're not keeping up with your competitors, you're not being innovative, and you begin to see revenue declines or stagnation. And then what do you have to do? You need to be able to cut your expenses. Employees are eventually part of a cutting of expenses. So those are some of the reasons for the incumbent worker training program. We do state, there could be increased pay. Oftentimes employers that I work with don't indicate that one of the intentions is that they're going to increase everybody's pay that completes one of these programs. But what we found is we track the individuals who completed training for 1 year after the training has been completed. We check in with their process 4 times for 1 year. So every quarter after an individual completes the program, and we try and measure, number one, are they still with the organization? Number two, their starting wage and their position were this. Now, what are they in each quarter? And we identify, did the individual get a promotion, or did the individual get a pay increase? And shockingly, for the data that we provide back to you for 1 year after justifies a lot of the training expenses. Most of the time when I'm working with HR folks or owners, they're like, oh my gosh, I didn't realize that was the consequence. Individuals all of a sudden started beginning performing better. They took on more responsibility. Many individuals, over double-digit percentage of the individuals, went on to an increased position and job pathing within the organization. And so there was a great opportunity for growth within the organization itself. So why is that important? We sat through and talked with ZipRecruiter. We've done presentations within our system through a program called Bagels in Business, where we talk about um, different problems regarding workforce with the general public. ZipRecruiter basically stated, hey, you know what, we were having a turnover problem like crazy. I mean, it's a lot of contact center work, so you expect a little bit higher than normal turnover. And so they began testing what would happen if we just increased the wage. How would that increase our retention component? And it didn't. It just increased the cost of labor. And so their retention remained just as high. So they changed their career pathing component and opportunities for incremental learning within the organization. And then as you had incremental learning, they had a competitive starting wage, but then as you performed or had incremental learning, their pay increases were tied to those learning development performance components. That actually did impact their retention ability. So just kind of a case study or a local organization that kind of talked about, hey, we have had this problem. Well, what was the cause effect? The data that we're collecting on the incumbent worker program seems to share that as well. The data with the on-the-job training program seems to indicate that the better that we do on the onboarding and showing that we're very focused on that job seeker and provide training, intentional designed training, seems to help retention. And then the final thing on this document is the apprenticeship program. Apprenticeship programs, if you're familiar with them, they're growing in discussion over the past 6 years. Apprenticeships typically have been considered very traditionally construction-based and manufacturing-based, and that's just not the case anymore. What you're seeing is a growth in apprenticeships in the IT world. You're seeing growths in just about every business type. Whether it's a full-blown federally recognized apprenticeship program where you go through and identify the classroom hours and on-the-job learning hours, or your organization is creating what I call a microship. You can go ahead and use that word. A microship is basically a small apprenticeship concept. You're using the same concept of an apprenticeship where you've got some classroom style learning and then quickly running them into some type of on-the-job learning so they get to apply the knowledge that they've learned in the classroom. What you're seeing in organizations and higher learning education as more opportunities to provide classroom and on-the-job learning connections. So I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on apprenticeships. There are programs that are actually out there across the country. If you've got a specific position that you're looking at and saying, hey, you know what, it's pretty unique. There's just no classroom training. There's no associate's degree or bachelor's degree for what we do. It's all very hands-on learning. An apprenticeship program could be a good fit for that problem. And then the fourth leg of what we provide is labor market information. So it's hard running blind. You run your business based off of data, more than likely. You gather information, you assess it and benchmark against where you are compared to your competitors, whether that's profitability, revenue-wise, number of people, services, quality of product or services. You're constantly evaluating your organization's performance. When it comes to labor market information, that's always been kind of a guesswork for a lot of smaller organizations. Bigger organizations maybe have software and things like that that they're able to utilize. The city of Phoenix went out and procured some of the most advanced data curation software. One of the programs that we use is an economic modeling, or EMSI, software system. It basically goes in and bots through job posting data and Bureau of Labor Statistics, Department of Labor data, CPS data, and curates all of that information and makes it into usable information. So if you're looking to find out what the employment trends are, we can tell you that. If we're looking at talent acquisition, what does the market for a specific occupation or industry look like? We can tell you what this market, what the Phoenix MSA, which is basically Maricopa County and northern part of Pinal County, actually look like for candidates. We can even tell you, what the competitiveness is, what people, your competitors are putting in their job descriptions and their job postings for salaries, and where they're starting those negotiations at. And so you kind of get a feel for, am I in the ballpark? Am I having a hard time attracting people because of some of the things that I'm asking for, or some of the wages that I'm presenting? So this information just gives you kind of an unbiased view of what's going on in the market. We get as close to your information as possible. You've got to remember that, like it or not, we run off of Bureau of Labor Statistics. We run off of NAICS code for industry and SOC codes for occupation codes. And very rarely do organizations run by the traditional job title or SOC code title. And so we try and get your existing title that you're using to match up as close as we can with the big data, so we can get you relevant information back. So we'll describe, where the potentials for error are when we provide you that information, or things that we should look at as we go into pulling data. We also find that certain industries will have more data than others. Construction is notorious, for example, or manufacturing. Both are notorious for not doing a lot of job postings, formal traditional job postings, and it's a lot of word of mouth. And therefore, because it's word of mouth, there's no big data to collect, or less big data to collect. So we'll describe those areas in the process as well. I want to take a pause here and open it up to any questions. I saw, is this a good program for someone who is having to pivot and go back to school because of COVID and self-employment? There's a couple of programs. It's a great question. So if you're currently in transition, this Arizona at Work is a great place to start. You can go in, work with a career advisor, even if you have staff that are impacted, or family members that are impacted, and they're looking at that transition point, and they realize, hey, as I'm looking for a job, I may be missing necessary skills in order to find or land that ideal job. You can walk into or call an Arizona at Work location, work with a career advisor. They'll go through and assess, eligibility, and be able to identify, could you get training funds? So you're familiar with a Pell Grant. If you were going to college, you had to fill out the Pell Grant paperwork. Our process is very similar, not shocking. We're a federal program. So a lot of the documentation is like filling out a Pell Grant, and it is a tuition reimbursement program. The only problem is we're not reimbursing you. We're paying directly to the training provider, so you're not out of pocket at all as a job seeker for that training, that skills advancement. But you just need to meet some of the eligibility programs. Bilingual, that's something definitely, if you send me your information, Our programs oftentimes have individuals who are bilingual. You just need to identify, what level of expertise in both languages you're looking for, or if you do a skills assessment for both of the languages to assess quality of translation. Those are things that we've helped a lot of organizations. This is Arizona, so we're pretty high need in that area. Yeah. So just send that information, and I'll put up my contact information here that you can send that information over. And I'm not sure if folks are able to ask direct questions live.
Yeah, we can totally unmute for anybody that would, like to unmute themselves. Feel free. If you're unable to, let me know, and I can go ahead and unmute you guys.
And I can watch the chat too. I've got it up here.
Okay.
But we definitely, these are complicated programs, so I want to make sure that I opened up a fire hydrant and I threw a ton of water at you. So please go ahead.
I'll go ahead and unmute you, Patricia, whenever you're ready.
Okay, thank you. I just wanted to ask in reference to the other slide, 2 slides back, Robert, and thank you for this valuable information. For myself, I'm looking to grow my agency because I had to cut back a lot last year. And I have a couple of people that I would like to refer to these type of grants, not necessarily potentially to work for me, but I plugged in to see within my agency if it would be also to help people to kind of on the job training for licensure type of stuff. Because what we have with me, I do insurance and financial services. And so they actually need to be licensed. Normally when I do that, I kind of hire them and have them do filing and teaching behind the scenes stuff until they get licensed, but I just don't have money to do that for someone right now. So I'm basically telling them, go do that and come back when you're ready, which is going to cause double work for me eventually, but I just don't have the funding to bring on a staff member to technically do on-the-job training.
Right.
That's my question.
Sure.
Thank you.
Yeah, no, great. We work directly with and lead currently a program specifically to the insurance industry. And that program works in conjunction with CPLC or Chicano Sport La Casa. IBEST, the Big I, is one of the training curriculums, and basically it walks individuals through the insurance industry as a whole. It's a multi-week program and provides them all of the different aspects of the insurance industry, whether you're going to go into a sales background or a claims underwriting background, all of the different facets. And then allows the individual at the end of that program, we're tied with WESMEC to actually go get some of the certifications. So all of that is pre-vocational. We did a soft launch. COVID just really wrecked our plans. We were all good to go. We had everything put together, and then COVID happened and messed things up. We did. They tried doing some recruiting a few months ago, Chicano Sport La Casa, and I think they had a small cohort that they may have run, but I'll have to look into that, Patricia, and get you some information back. So yeah, it is a great program. It is a combination of funds through federal and private funds that make that program work. Even with your incumbent workers, you could send your incumbent workers. We could talk about individuals who are working with you already as incumbent workers and talk about those skills components, and our program would pay for the same type of process. We also do the same type of program within the financial industry. Series 7, I did a program that was focused on getting individuals their Series 7 learning, and then they get hired by the participating companies. Once they landed in a Series 7, you have to have a sponsor company in order to sit for the exam. They would get the 8 weeks of training and then get hired, and then they would sit for the exam. We're now doing the same thing for the SIE program. FINRA, about a year or two ago, came out with SIE as a pre-vocational option to the SIE.
Thank you. Could I get your screen for your contact information again, and I can shoot you an email? Thank you, Robert.
Yep, no worries.
amazing.
I appreciate it. Great question. Great question. Not shocking. Insurance, financial services, what we call advanced business services, which is one of our major focuses, is a huge growth area within the Maricopa County area. So we have, the last thing I think I saw, over 80% of the population of that industry is here within the Maricopa area. And I'm not sure if I missed another question in the chat.
Robert, this is Dino here.
Hey, Dino.
Can you? Yeah. So on that incumbent program that you were talking about, I saw there was 50 to 90%, but then you also mentioned something about the potential of up to 100%. Did I misunderstand?
No, you got it perfect. It's WIOA is simply confusing.
Sure.
So if you've got, let's say you've got less than 50 employees, or how many employees do you have?
Just a handful right now,
Okay.
just 3.
Okay, so you've got less than 50, so you'd be at the 90-10 split, meaning that I would reimburse you up to 90% of the training costs. You would out of pocket 10%, but wait, there's more. The Fed used the term in-kind contribution. So if you send the employee or employees during normal working hours to take the training, you can utilize their hourly rate times the number of hours of the training. So if it was 100 hours of training and they make $20 an hour, I would do $10 an hour, which is, no, I'm sorry. I would take the $20 an hour times the 100 hours, and that would be your contribution, which means you would have almost zero out of pocket. I would reimburse you for the full training amount.
And is there a minimum time that the employee must be employed with you before you can even put in for that?
Yeah, so it's working full-time employee-employer relationship, and the third requirement is 6 months or greater with the organization. However, there is a loophole. Let's say you're sending 2 of the employees that are considered incumbent, and you've got a newbie that just came in. That you're just hiring, you can toss the newbie into that process as long as the majority of the individuals meet the 6-month time frame. That's all that's required. And unfortunately, the Department of Labor doesn't qualify majority. They just say majority. So I don't know about you, but I feel like 51% is the majority.
Well, if you had 2, then you'd be 50-50. So I don't know.
Yeah, so yeah, it's we're close in there. So that's something that we can take a look at and talk about.
Beautiful, thank you.
And are there video walkthroughs of these applications? That would be a fantastic idea. No, we're simple folk. Our applications are Word documents, our reporting documents, our Excel documents. And I am your virtual live video. So I will pretend I'm AI if you would rather video me. Yeah, I'm just, we're one-on-one in the discussion. Our programs are not like an RFP. And I want to make that pretty clear. It's an iterative process. So as we're talking about the applications and you're deciding, is this a good fit? And then you start filling out the application, you can send that application to me and say, hey, Rob, am I on the right page here? I don't know how to fill out this or that. Can you help me with some of the wordsmithing? And that's what we're here to do. This isn't about, it's not an RFP. It's about making sure that we're putting together a grant program that's going to benefit you as an organization, help you with sustainability of your organization and growth of your organization while benefiting the job, your employee or job seeker during that process. So they're also have economic mobility in their process. So now you're getting a kind of a flavor for what our underlying purpose or underbelly is. We're selfish. We want you to continue to grow within our community so you can hire more people, earn more revenue, and keep on growing. We want our community, our participants living within the community to grow and expand and be able to be more self-sufficient than they were. That's economic mobility, that I'm doing better than my parents or grandparents, more sustainable. And so that's our intention. So do not be afraid to ask a question. I'm a pretty friendly guy. I wasn't born and raised in government. I was born and raised in your side of the world. You can feel free to contact me in any way that you would like, an email, a phone call, whatever. I'm flexible. Any other questions? I'm not sure how we're doing on time. I apologize. I lost track of time.
Oh, no worries. We still have about 10 minutes technically. So if anybody has any other questions or comments or would like to unmute, we can go ahead and do that. It looks like Hilda had a question. So let me go ahead and unmute her really quick. Okay. All right, Hilda, you are able to unmute if you'd like to ask your question.
Can you hear me?
Sure can.
Okay. How do we go, but in a brick and mortar location, hopefully in the next couple of months, how do we go about, let me rephrase that. You said your employees have to, or my employees would have to wait 6 months in order to be able to probably qualify for one of these grants?
So it depends. Now, if you're looking at bringing on new employees or you're just onboarding new individuals, then I would look at the on-the-job training grant program, and that reimburses for the hourly rates. That one's really focused on net new hires coming into the organization, reimbursing for the 50% of the hourly rate for what you define as learning objectives that are going to be required. Conversely, the incumbent worker training program, they would have to be on with your organization for 6 months or more in an employee-employer relationship. And that program will reimburse for actual training, classroom-ish. Classroom is a quote unquote classroom. Classroom has changed over the past years of how we define that. But that would reimburse for the tuition component.
Okay, and you also said that it wouldn't be like, I do a lot of events and I need to train them how to do flower arrangements, custom centerpieces. Would that out me out of one of the programs?
I don't know why it would.
Okay. Yeah, I'm all hands-on labor and just
Right.
like, if we're gonna do 50 custom centerpieces, I need to train them for a long time. We
Yep.
use a lot of products, so that's literally gonna cost me a lot of money to be
Yeah,
able to do.
that most fits in with our OJT concept, because you're show and telling in that particular case. You're probably walking up to the individual saying, okay, here's how you do this arrangement. I'm going to show you, and then I'm going to let you go ahead and do the process. And then I'm going to come back and give you mentorship and help you understand, here's what you did great. Here's what you need to work on. And we keep doing that as a process until you've become a subject matter expert. So absolutely, that perfectly describes an OJT program.
And I would have to still wait 6 months, or
No,
I could do.
no, you do not want to wait for
No,
6
I
months on
don't.
that one. You would want to put in your application for an OJT program now, because it takes about 6 weeks to get a contract in place, and so
Okay.
that contract should be in place prior to the hire of the individuals, or at least the application and process before the hire of those individuals.
Okay, great. Thank you so much. Appreciate it. All the information.
Yeah, no worries. There was a question about labor market information, where we can find trend data. It really is just you and I having a conversation. We do have canned data. Almost all of the information that I develop on behalf of employers is customized. So we have a quick conversation. What is the data that you're looking for? I'll go out and find the data, interpret the data, and and put it into a report and email it back to you. Usually, depending on my schedule, I can usually get that out to you within about 24 hours, sometimes the same day, but let's call 24 hours as a safe bet. You can request the information just by giving me an email or giving me a call, myself or someone on my team. If I'm busy, James in my office also helps with labor market information. Excellent.
It looked like Jerry had a question next, and then after him, we had Jasper raise his hand. So Jerry, go for it.
Thank you. Hey, Rob, this is Jerry. Thanks for the great info. My question is, I launched a marketing agency about a year ago with another person, and we currently have 2 employees that work very limited hours for us. But we're at the point now where we have a lot of things in the pipeline. And in order for us to really explode and take that next step, we're going to need to bring these individuals on full-time, and ideally probably go after another 2 to 3 individuals to join our agency. My question is, would the on-the-job training program be the best solution that would align with what we have? We're just at a point where, again, we need the help, but we don't have the capital to bring them on board.
So unfortunately, my programs won't help with the wage, offsetting the wage component, which is that what you're asking, or you want to bring them on full time, but they need additional skills in order to be successful as long term? If it's the latter, if you're saying, okay, you're going to go from part time to 32 hours or more, which would be the indication of full time, 32 hours or more, then the incumbent worker would kick in. They're already employees of yours, so they've met the 6 month. I'm assuming met the 6 month time frame, and now if you're bringing them into 32 hours or more, they'd hit the full-time requirement, and they're an employee-employer relationship. So that would now make us meeting all 3 requirements. Then you could kick in for the training grant and get training for the individuals. I don't have a program that offsets wage costs. There was some of that during the heat of the COVID timeframe, and most of those grant programs have disintegrated or have been used up.
Got it. Thank you.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, and I guess for the incumbent program, yes, we would want to take again these individuals that have been with us for a couple of months already.
Sure.
For 8 months to be exact, to be able to take them up there and get that additional training. But I was just wondering if, in addition to that, if we were to just go out and hire some additional help, if there was something that your organization could do on.
The new hires then would be covered under the OJT, and that would be the 50% of wages up to $4,000. So that's about an OJT would last you about 3 months for wages that are somewhere in that $20 range. So $4,000 goes about 3 months of on-the-job learning time frame. So we'd be able to offset that learning time for about 3 months.
I appreciate it. Thank you.
Yep. Regina asked the question about the Arizona Job Connection making an employer account. We love it if you create an employer account, but we also recognize that Arizona Job Connection is a governmental software. It did just recently go through a software upgrade. My team is more than happy if you don't have time. You're a small business. You're wearing about 400 hats more than I am, and you don't have to be an HR professional as well. You can send your information to our team. Our team will create the account in AJC on your behalf. We'll post your jobs that you may have on your behalf. So consider us an extension of your HR department. Moving a contract worker to an employee. That is a great question. Yes, they could be. Either way. And so it depends on if you're looking at the OJT process, then it would be an offset of wages. We could make a claim. I'd have to double check if I have a loophole on the IWT. We'd probably have to bring them in as an OJT because they aren't in an employee-employer relationship as a contract worker. So I don't know if I have wiggle room with the Fed on that part, but definitely on the OJT.
Yeah, Rob.
Yes.
Thank you for the information you provided. So, and you kind of spoke to it a little bit already because I have it in the chat. I guess my question, to expand on the question that I asked initially was, so I like that you can take each scenario and personalize it and then answer that person's question. What I was trying to look at is, but for businesses to grow and look for other opportunity, either in the new place or on new services to grow, like you were speaking to earlier. One of the things that I imagine would be valuable is to be able to look at entire market trend. Let's say you were IT services, and then you decided you can add more IT services, right, to your current business model. But knowing the data that tell you there is a market opportunity outside of just the news or anecdotal information, but actual real data, to say, okay, this industry is growing, whether it's construction or it's cybersecurity. Is there a way else? I mean, is there other opportunity in addition to you providing that unique information to an individual, but to make that information available to like a group of people to say, here are the trends, this is market trends, employment trends, and if you want to expand your, and you can use that to either expand your business, go into a new business, start a new company, however you use that, but these are the trends we're seeing, and but presenting multiple trends that it may not be unique to an individual, but multiple people can use that information to then make business decisions. Are you understanding my question?
Yep, I understand your question. So the data, unfortunately, that I have is going to be specifically towards workforce development related. So you're exactly right when you talk about. I can do industry, larger focused macro level of that specific industry, if that would be considered macro, or the micro level at occupations. What workforce development programs do not do is indicate correlations to specific growths of specific services or product categories, etc. For that component, you'd want to look at a consulting service through the Management Technical Assistant Program. That's actually available through the housing department in most communities, depending on which city you're in. There's oftentimes grant programs that'll connect you to small business connections to those types of programs. Folks that are more focused on organizational development and more of a strategic plan initiative that would be outside the scope of workforce. Workforce really comes behind organizational development, consulting, and strategic planning in order to support your vision, mission, and strat plans, your tactics. I'm part of the tactical side.
Thank you.
Yep. Do your businesses need to be registered as a minority-owned business somewhere? I'm not for my programs. My programs are open. So for my program, no, you don't have to be specifically a minority-owned business. All right, I think how we doing? I think we're about 3 minutes over.
Yep, we're all good. Thank you guys so much for participating and getting your questions in and comments. It's super helpful. Thank you, Rob, for providing all this information. That's obviously like very helpful and timely. We really, really appreciate it. Like I said earlier, we're going to be sending out that post-event email that's going to be with Rob's contact info that you see on the screen, as well as the presentation and any other resources we might have to share with you. So you can go ahead and get connected that way and look out for that post-event email for today. Other than that, I think we're good. I don't see any other questions. So again, Rob, thank you so much. And we look forward to being able to work together again soon.
Appreciate everyone's time. Thank you very much for the discussion.
Thank you guys. Have a great day.